Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the 20th of February, 2020. Can you believe it? 2020. 20th of February. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome as you come in. I believe the chat is on. Again, I want to say hello to you all as you come in. And this is not an impromptu necessarily. Of course, I've done these things before. I try to stay Tuesdays and Thursdays, but not guaranteed, as you know. So what's the point of coming on today? Are there any earth-shattering developments? Nah, not really. I thought it was time for me to address the philosophy that opposes the concept of limited government and basically the protection of the rights of the individual. Because there is a philosophy that opposes that, and it disguises itself as something entirely different until it gets power. And it's been here with us for thousands of years, these two opposing viewpoints. So I've called this a look into the dark side. No, we're not going to bash on Trump today. And I want to just say this about that. You know, I've talked about Mark Pantano and gave you his information, and he's very critical of the president. But it's not because he doesn't support Trump. It's because he is like me. He stands not for the cult of personality, but for principle. So while we support Trump, we need to hold his feet to the fire. And that's the reason why I'm so critical, especially when it comes to his lack of understanding and administration and defense of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And that's all I'm going to say about it. All the other administrations of government that happen are fine and dandy, no big deal, but those things must be held inviolate, and you've heard me say that many, many times. And he hasn't done a very good job of that because he comes from a liberal background, actually. And that's a bad term, I know. But for lack of he was a Democrat, and his family was primarily Democrat for when he was growing up, etc. So he has those ideas in his head, even though he may not think that he does. I don't really know. I can't say what he thinks. I can only look at what he does, and his actions and lack thereof, depending upon the circumstances, on the Constitution and Bill of Rights, particularly the First, Second, Fourth Amendments, have been very, very troubling for me. Fiscal things, all that, yeah, argue in government about that all you want. It doesn't seem to matter what side you're on, really. It's always the same thing. But you know where we stand on Trump. Yes, I support him, but I don't support his lack of action, he's kind of starting to come around to it, but it's very slow. It has to be slow. I'm not going to get into that argument today. That's not what we're here for today. And the big push right now, supposedly, of course, the election. And I don't disagree with that, but I'm not certain that that will provide us with anything any better than what we already are experiencing. But be that as it may, let me ask and make sure that the sound is okay. I always do that. If you could just let me know. I think everything's running pretty good this morning. This internet is very spotty, as you all know. And it looks like everything's okay, I guess. Nobody's saying that there's a problem, so I'll just go with it. Okay, so I have a specific person. Thank you, Jesse, and Deriazi. I'm not sure who that is. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. I have an individual that sends me a lot of information. He's one of the few that I have on Twitter that I get his direct messages, and he's already accepted. I take everything that he sends me. And he's been very good. And we all, on occasion, put out information that isn't entirely accurate, or maybe we don't have exactly the right viewpoint on what's really happening. And this particular individual, he should know who he is as soon as I bring up the subject matter, because he sent it to me. I think it was last night. This particular individual basically just posts things to me. Very rarely will make a comment, but every once in a while he does. And I'd love to give his name over the air, but I'm not certain that that's wise, and it's not fair to him. I haven't gotten that permission. But as soon as I talk about this particular individual, he'll know that he sent me this information. So let me get right down to it. Okay, there are two opposing viewpoints. So you can boil all these political machinations and arguments and debates and everything basically down to two functions. Okay, and this was even talked about in the Bible, and so it's been going on for a long time. And of course, other philosophies and religions as well. You have one side that believes that they need to control your life, that everything that you do needs to be in their control. And then you have the opposing viewpoint, which is free agency, or what I like to call the perfect law of liberty. So these two things are constantly, and they have been for millennia and maybe for millions of years, I'm not certain. But these two things have been opposing each other for a long time. The one side that wants to give the people their right to live their own lives according as they see fit. Now, there's some rules, of course. You can't steal your neighbor's land, et cetera, like that. But basically, you get to exercise your God-given rights under the protection of the ruling class, that they will protect those rights. Then you have the opposite side that says, no, they can't. They'll say that they're interested in your rights, but in actuality, they want to seize control of your life and everything that you have and will ever have, especially your conscience and your consciousness. So basically, it's those who are for the perfect law of liberty and those who want to enslave you, if you boil it down into the least common denominator. And you can see this all through history, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to mention a few names. Some of you will recognize some of these. Well, you'll recognize one of them for sure, but the other two you might not. Before I proceed with that, let me explain why our form of government is the way it is. Now, it used to be that, of course, the senators were appointed by the state legislators. They were elected by the state legislatures themselves. That way, the states were represented, the states themselves. Not the people were represented in the House of Representatives. The states were represented in the Senate. Well, that was all changed very surreptitiously and very nastily back in the early 1900s, about the same time the Federal Reserve Act was brought in 1913. And basically, the senators were then elected, supposedly, popularly. Well, the problem with that is that now you have two. See, the way it was balanced before is you had the states being directly represented and the people. Plus, the Senate was kind of like the aristocracy. In other words, you had the representatives of the Senate, the senators representing those people of means. Do you see what I'm saying? In other words, the aristocracy, the formal class, the moneyed class, etc., and then the balance of that was the House of Representatives. But when they gave it to the popular vote, unfortunately, the Senate lost a lot of its aristocratic characteristics, and it also lost the ability, the states lost an ability for them to be represented correctly at the federal government level. And a lot of people are constantly pushing for the popular vote. Oh, we need the popular vote. That should settle everything. Well, no, because then you leave out, those people of means, right, who have a different viewpoint. Especially in the early days of the Constitution, I think most of you understand this. The idea was that you couldn't even vote unless you were a landowner. It wasn't necessarily to discriminate. Well, it was a discrimination now has a bad connotation. It's a pejorative, but it really isn't, because you discriminate every day, whether you're going to buy this apple or that orange, that kind of thing. Well, the idea was that the Constitution would balance these two opposing concerns out, and that would be good. Of course it would be, because then you have the producers and those who provide for labor, or who provide jobs for laborers, etc., that are able to function, and then you have the people being represented anyway. It's supposed to be a balance, right? Well, again, this fight has been going on for a long time about taking your perfect law of liberty away from you. And this problem in history just keeps rearing its ugly head because people are control freaks. That's just the bottom line. The people are control freaks. Every archetype that you see in a movie shows this same. Well, they used to. They're starting to get away from it now because they're trying to get everybody to think the same way, which is really bad. But all the archetypes used to be good and evil. The black hat, white hat, that kind of thing. So, which way is better? Well, the best way, I think, in human history is the way that we've developed it, or they developed it in the Continental Congress and all of that. Yeah, there were some problems. Of course there were. There's never going to be anything perfect. But in my estimation, it was the very best thing that's ever come along, okay, except possibly for the judges' time period in the Old Testament. Again, I'm not going to go there, but let's talk about a few individuals and how they looked at things. There was the King of Prussia, Frederick the Great, and one of the things he said was, "You don't know this damned race the way I do." Talking about mankind. You don't know this damned race the way I do. And with that, he was very much involved in a lot of control, and also the way he ran his government, okay? Then you have another individual very similar to that, and really I understand these viewpoints, but you see it was either or in those days, right? You didn't have this balance that the founding fathers in our country so wisely put together to represent these two opposing viewpoints. The Duke of Marlborough said, and I've quoted him before, "I do not believe in the collective wisdom of individual ignorance." A lot of truth to that. You put a bunch of dumb people together and you basically got a bunch of dumb people, right? Now, there are some exceptions. If they're willing to talk and to explore and that they can discover new things, so he's a little bit pessimistic there. I think that there is some wisdom in that, but it's not monumental. Okay? Compare those two viewpoints with Thomas Jefferson, who in the Declaration of Independence talked about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Think about those. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, there are people that oppose Thomas Jefferson's viewpoint and your perfect law of liberty, your exercise of it. And we're going to talk about one today that you've probably never heard of, or if you have, you didn't really realize what you were dealing with. Okay, so it's not somebody really popular. Some of you will know about him, some of you won't. And he's not going to like me talking about him today, but I'm going to. Pardon me. Yes, it's caramel cream, of course. Okay. When President Trump started to run for office, I don't think that the left, I'm going to just call them that for the sake of the conversation here, I don't think the left really anticipated that he would be that much different than what he was, say, 20 years ago. And that's if this whole thing wasn't planned out and that he's not a planned placebo, okay? I'm just, we're kind of putting all that aside for just a minute. Let's take Trump at what he claims to be. I'm not saying he is. I have some problems with it, but let's just take that. There were people on the left side who saw him as we all know, as an interloper, as somebody who came in and disturbed their club. Whether or not that was planned is immaterial to what I'm going to talk about today. What it did do is, apparently, I'm not saying he was very effective. He is very effective at causing chaos in there, in that he's shaking up the system. Pardon me. Coffee makes me burp sometime. And that's what we wanted him to do. We wanted him to expose the corruption in our government, because you can't fix a problem if you don't know it's there. Or if you know it's there, but you don't know where the disease is actually sitting. So he did that. And of course, right away, the day he walked down those stairs at Trump Tower, or the elevator, or whatever it was, they started on him. So there is a consternation there. There is this recognition that he was going to do something different in one way or another that the left didn't want. Now the left couches their position in a lot of grandiose statements of taking care of you and democracy, and we're the guys that have all the answers. Well, you see where they are today, right? They don't talk about issues. They talk about personalities. And their big point is they hate Trump. That's their unifying, which means they hate you. Okay, you see how that ties in? And you're going to see that. I've already quoted Frederick the Great and Duke of Marlborough here, okay? They hate you. They don't want you to have a say in what happens. They want to be the arbiters and the controllers of that. So let's go to a man by the name of Walter Schaub. Anybody here know who that is? Let me just ask and see if there's anything here. Anybody know who Walter Schaub is? Okay, I won't. I didn't either. Okay, until this gentleman sent me this information. Well, let me tell you about Walter Schaub. He's an attorney. And he was in the government. He was appointed by Obama, and then he was reappointed, I guess, for some time by Trump, and then he left to the Office of Government Ethics. Yes, the Office of Government Ethics. And he's an attorney. Isn't that a contradiction in terms? So we know what Nancy Pelosi's like. We know what Dianne Feinstein's like, Chuck Schumer, Adam Schiff. I mean, we could Brennan, Clapper, Comey, all these people that have infiltrated our government, and they want to, they take an oath to support and defend the Constitution, but in reality, what they're about is they want to control your life. They want your assets. In fact, if they can, they'll kill you. I'm just going to say it that way because that's really what it is. I want you to hear what this guy wrote on Twitter. It's a rather long thread, but I think it's important that you look inside the mind of this person that's not somebody you'd normally hear about, but his philosophy spells it all out. He's writing this to counter Trump's influence, which is really our influence, what we wanted to see happen, okay? He's not arguing issues. He's not arguing the Bill of Rights. He's not arguing the Constitution. He's not arguing any issue of any substance. He's arguing personality. Listen to what he says. This was written on the 16th of February, and this is going to be a little long, but please bear with me. I think it's very, very important that you understand, and you won't be able to absorb this right away, okay? A lot of it's subtle, and it's dangerous, but he accuses us and Trump of being dangerous. Just listen to this. So I'm going to read all the way through it without commenting, I hope. Okay? Just listen to this. Sit back. Just, put everything else out of your mind and listen to this person who opposes you and how they think. With the impeachment trial over, we're in a dangerous new phase of Trump's war on democracy. Okay, I got to interrupt. We're not a democracy. Okay? That's number one. But this guy's an attorney. What do we do now? I want to share a perspective that I hope you'll find both optimistic and realistic. Now realize who his audience is. People like him, okay? The leftist Marxist, even as far as Antifa, okay? It's long for Twitter, but I'm posting it here because you're its target audience. I think the greatest threat we face is despondency. How long is the right? How long have conservatives been despondent over the facts that our rights are being taken away from us? So what are these people despondent about? That they're losing control and that you're trying to get your rights back. I said I wouldn't comment, sorry. The enemies of democracy. Yeah, I'm an enemy of democracy. The enemies of democracy, foreign and domestic, want you drowning in hopelessness. No. What's that Saul Alinsky tactic? Accuse others of what you're doing? A hopeless populace is a helpless one. To that end, a hostile foreign power set up an infrastructure to weaponize social media against you. Boy, if that isn't the kettle calling the pot black. The beneficiary of that effort learned from its success, and his campaign, no doubt who he's talking about here, is trying to blur reality with its own blitzkrieg of chaos. In other words, he's destroying our institutions that have been so corrupt because we want them to stay corrupt. Compounding the assault on your senses, I'm sorry, I do have to comment. He's attacking your concept of right and wrong. He wants you to understand his concept of right and wrong, which is whatever they do is right. The state is God. Compounding the assault on your senses, he also wields a corrupted government, which follows his lead in disseminating lies to sow confusion. In other words, if you stand up against the evil side, you're sowing confusion. You're dividing the people. That's why they don't want the Bible taught in school. That's why they don't want anything about right and wrong. That's why they're trying to destroy male and female relationships, etc. Don't be the demoralizer who tweets, "What good will that do?" If you don't think a particular action will help, get out of the way of those of us who do. Keep it to yourself. Take a break. Change is a product of momentum, which we build one action at a time. Can you tell this guy is a liberal arts guy? He graduated, I think, in 71. Maybe he was born in 71. I don't know. But the point is, man, this is all this gobbledygook that they always taught. No issue, no way to address a problem, but this nebulous argument over cult of personality. What happens to citizens who write postcards to voters, call members of Congress, go to meetings, hand out flyers, go to marches, donate small amounts, or take other actions? Notice still no issues here. They show up on election day to cast their votes, and they may even inspire others to do the same. There's also always a chance that these actions could have a more direct impact. If you think that can't happen, you haven't been paying attention. He's talking about their process here, what they're doing. Not always, but sometimes public pressure has slowed and even stopped the demagogue's overreach. He's calling Trump a demagogue. Accuse others of what you yourselves are. The good news is that things are better in some ways than many fear. There's an underreported public engagement in the fight for democracy. Again, we're not a democracy. That's counter to everything that we've stood for. Just as the rise of fascism, have you heard that before? Do you see why I say he's talking to Antifa here and that kind of groupthink? Just as the rise of, not saying that there isn't Trump groupthink, okay? I've been against that cult of personality, and I want to hold his feet to the fire based on principle. But you see what's happening here. Just as the rise of fascism has exceeded anything we could have imaged, so too has the opposition to it. You are the hope factory. Reporting on small actions is harder and less likely to produce ratings than reporting on the demagogues. This name calling is very interesting. Weird rallies. But it takes more commitment to write 300 postcards to voters than it does to show up for a couple hours at the fascism circus to bark for the cameras. There is energy behind the many individual actions being taken, so cultivate a hopeful and entirely realistic belief that individuals make a difference, only if you do it the way we want it. Are you reading between the lines here? Only if you do what we tell you to do. Foster in yourself and others a willingness to do small things. Give $3 to something, anything. Give 1 hour of your time. If you want to taste hope, check out all the inspiring responses folks posted in response to the tweet below late on Saturday night when Twitter usage is down. Read their responses, share them with others, and add your own. Then go save democracy, not the republic, not the constitutional republic of the United States, but democracy. 2 wolves and a lamb for dinner. That's what this guy wants to do. That's why the popular vote had to be balanced by the Electoral College. And all these efforts to destroy the purpose of the Electoral College are demonic. The rich people, unfortunately, figure out how to get around that because they move all their assets overseas or whatever. They have their redoubts and their armed redoubts and all that, but you're going to be subject to the roving bands of criminals that this guy is going to stir up. So his name is Walter Schaub. He's on Twitter at Walt Schaub. So Walter Schaub's his name. Let me spell it out. And for those of you who have Twitter, I want you to go and look. This is a pinned tweet. This is at the top. It might change here shortly, but he put it up on the, let's see, I got to get the date again. He put it up on the 16th of February 20th of 2020. So, and this was his pinned tweet, and it's a thread. Okay, so his name is Walter Schaub, Walter, capital Schaub. And on Twitter, he is at Walt Schaub, Waltshaub. And guess what? He's got a check mark. You think they'd give me a check mark? Do you see what you're up against here? Do you see what we're up against? I don't care if a guy like this has that kind of a philosophy. He obviously got it in the institutions that he went to for learning, or he grew up in that environment, whatever. But it is, in fact, not American. It isn't. And that philosophy is the dangerous one to your freedom and your liberty. You see how subtle that is? All right. Let's have a little chat about this morning. I'm going to go to chat and see what you guys think about it. And we'll address your questions because I think that's what we need to do. By the way, there is one other thing I want to tell you about. This is off the topic this morning, but because of the coronavirus problem, I thought I would quote someone here that you all will know because I interviewed him on this program. I have so much respect for Richard Higgins, as most of you know. I'm not saying I agree with him on the way things are going, although his inside information, he's been in the White House, I never have been. He's got a bigger and better picture of this than I do, but there's still some basic things that concern me that not about him, but we have some not opposing, but slightly different viewpoints on the way things should be handled. But primarily that's because I have a military police background. He's been in the political side for quite a while. But at any rate, I have a lot of respect for him. He put his life and fortune on the line by trying to alert Trump about the coup. He and Ezra Cohen, I never can remember how to say his name. But anyway, Watkins. And then there was another guy too, which I've forgotten his name. Pardon me for that. But Rich Higgins put out something on this coronavirus thing that I think I just need to pass along. He put it out on Twitter. So let me just read this, and then we'll move back to the subject at hand. 4 million square miles in China, and coronavirus appears in town with biolab affiliated with the military. Coronavirus appears to bind more completely with Asian male proteins. What have I been saying? Now, by saying that, they'll say that we're xenophobic, that we're racist and all that. No, this is just what the evidence is revealing at this point. Now, does that mean if you're on the far other side that you're a fully white Caucasian or maybe a pure a pure African descent that you can't get sick? No, he's saying it appears to bind more completely with Asian male proteins. So there's some indication that this was probably a bioweapon that they were planning on releasing. They didn't mean to do it in China, but then they just took advantage of it, of course. Or maybe they did, I don't know. But their real enemies there are Vietnam, Taiwan, that kind of thing. Nepal, Tibet, India, etc. So in India, they aren't really Asian by and large. But at any rate, you see what he's saying here. And that's kind of the evidence that I was seeing there early on. Again, if you're not Asian, don't think you're out of the woods, because that's not the case. Okay, you still have to be very careful. You don't know what your where you don't know all of your genes, okay? Then he says China's largest enemies are islands in Asia, Taiwan, Japan. Oh, but it's definitely not a weapon. So I just thought I'd give that information out. If you're not subscribed to Rich Higgins, and also you need to on Twitter, and also you'll want to make sure that you go to Unconstrained Analytics, okay, which I've talked about before, and I think that's a .org if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so let's get back to the subject matter at hand. This is all couched, the left side is all couched in making you feel good. Now, yeah, Trump has done a lot of that too, okay, and I realize that. But it's from a slightly different perspective. He talks about individual responsibility, about going out and working and creating your paradise. That's basically where he's coming from. The left, on the other hand, is saying, we'll do it for you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to give you the money to go to school. You see the difference, okay? We're going to give you free houses. We're going to make sure that you can get to heaven. We're going to do that. Not you. You're not going to work. We're going to put ourselves in the place of God. We're not going to give you the opportunity to work on your own. We're going to become God, and we're going to dictate and distribute what we think you should have. You see the difference here? And of course, individual liberty is totally out of the question unless it fits their purposes, like Antifa's First Amendment rights out on the street. You notice when Caitlin was out, she reports for InfoWars, but she was out at the Ohio State University, I think it was, or University of Ohio, one of the two, and there were like 400 leftists that came out there and were throwing things at her and all this, and the police and the school said, well, and the Libertarian Party said that, those 400 people had a right to assembly. Well, if I remember right, it says peaceful assembly, number one, and number two, when you're throwing things at people and that kind of deal, not debating them, that's not freedom of speech. That's assault and battery. But you see what they do. And I think we all know that. Okay, let me go to the chat here. I said I would. I got to stop jacking my jaws and see what you all think. Okay. That's pretty good. What I'm laughing at is Disgustical says that answer is Trump. That way he always has a supply of heads to chop off when things don't go well. There is some truth to that, I hate to say. There is some truth to that. Okay. Yeah, exactly, Mother Clucker 101. It was the people that had skin in the game if they owned land. Right. We're seeing it now. That's the real problem with illegal immigration. These people don't have skin in the game. They don't have investments. They don't have things here that they care about. What they're looking for is they might be coming to work. I don't want to degrade everyone that's trying to get here. The problem is that the way the system's set up, it's about a giveaway. That's really where it is. I'm not saying that a lot of them don't want to work and open businesses. I know a lot of them that have. I think I talked about in San Diego, there was a small restaurant. It was a Mexican restaurant down from where I was staying. Very small. It wasn't much bigger than a couple of sheds put together. Wonderful food. And they were people that came here and opened up that shop, and they worked, and they had the best food in the neighborhood. Okay? So there are exceptions. The problem is what the system wants to do. The system, the way it's built right now, is they want to take care of these people so that they'll vote for them. And that's really what it's about. And of course, they don't have skin in the game. They don't have how many people in their family had people in the Revolutionary War or the War of 1812 or the Civil War or World War I or World War II for the Americans. None of them. And they come from places where they know nothing about personal liberty and the Constitution. What they know is that they've heard that the government here will take care of them, and that's a problem. But that's what people like Schaub are talking about. That's the democracy he wants. He wants to do your thinking for you. As a matter of fact, I won't say who said it, but there was an individual who said, you don't need to think. We've thought it out for you. All the thinking's been done. When somebody says that, they're your enemy. Look out. Watch out. Yeah, Walter, and there's some truth to that. Remember, at that time, land was free. You could become a landholder by settling wilderness. Yeah, that's true. So it was open to the common people as well. The point is the idea was that you had to have some reason to be concerned about what your government's doing. Okay, that was the bottom line. And a lot of you are talking about the problem, Congress giving the power to the courts and all. I know, actually, the federal court system is really not constitutional in a lot of ways. The Supreme Court is, but there are some real problems with the way the federal court system was set up, and I don't want to get into that. But yeah, you're right. There is a problem with that. There is. That's kind of off the topic today, though. Don Walt, again, you're talking about the Act of 1871. I don't care. I've already discussed why that's, and I'm not saying they don't operate under it. What I'm saying is that shows how corrupt they are. Because Marbury versus Madison plainly said that no law, no statute, no legislation, whatever that is enacted that is contrary to the Constitution is valid, that it's null and void. Okay? And unfortunately, we have people in the government who won't fight for that, and certainly Walter Shaw isn't. He's going to use legalese. Okay, go read his stuff. I've given it to you, and I wanted you to see what it feels like to be subject to somebody like that. We could talk about Bill Barr, but that's really going around right now. I've got some real problems with what's happening, but that's kind of off topic today. So I don't want to get into Durham and Barr and this whole thing with McCabe and all this nonsense that's happening. I heard some people say, well, McCabe is turned. He's going to. I think it was Dr. Sharon King. Was that her name? Anyway, saying that. Well, McCabe is turned, and that's the reason why they haven't. No, you keep the charges on them as guarantee that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. This is all hogwash, but we don't want to go there today. Just suffice it to say that the DOJ and the FBI are corrupt, disgusting institutions that need to be, at the very least, totally overhauled. Michael Friend, I love the chaos, I have to be honest. Well, it's a show, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. Actually, I wish it would be so chaotic that it would totally shut most of the government down. Our government is at least 4 times bigger than it needs to be. It needs to be chopped down to a quarter to a third of what it is today. Absolutely. Oh, that's interesting. No PhD Cody. It's the blood secrets they don't want out. We could go there, but there's truth to that. But let's not go there today. Let's just talk about this, okay? I want to talk about this dangerous philosophy of we're going to take care of you. We'll make you do everything that you are supposed to do. We're going to make sure that you do everything right. We're going to do this. We're setting you free. You see the difference? And that argument has been going on. It was recorded in the Bible, right? The war in heaven that Isaiah talks about, and Book of Revelations. And we're in the other phase of that war in heaven right now. Or maybe we are living it right now. There's this thing about time, that time is a human construct. I've heard them say that. I don't agree with that. On the subatomic level, when you get into quantum physics and all that, I can understand where they'd be saying that, the power of the observer and all that. So maybe it's true, but the point is that we do have an influence on our surroundings and what happens. That is true. That is true. Okay. Okay, Disgustical, I think this is a valid point. Because the left hates Trump doesn't mean they hate America. That is mind control. No, 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 no. By their fruits you will know them. I've just described what the left wants. Trump stands for rugged individualism. I'm not saying that he's actually like that, but that's how people look at him. Rugged individualism, the Bill of Rights, even though his support of that has been abysmal, as I've said. No, they do hate America. They hate the concept of the perfect law of liberty, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yes, they do. Unless you do it their way. Unless, and I talked about it this way once, Disgustical, because I really do disagree with you here, okay? There are two types of law that we could have. I mean, there are many, but let's break it down into these two. There's our law, which is the constitutional republic law, which says that all things are permissible unless specifically prohibited. Okay? So everything is permissible unless it is expressly prohibited. Like murder. Okay? What these people want to institute, and we've seen it for a long time, and I'm not saying that a lot of the rhinos or Republicans aren't this way too. They're these demons disguised as Republicans. Okay, this is a mindset. This is a philosophy. So you have constitutional republic law, which is all things are permissible unless expressly prohibited, and those are very, very few. Then you have Napoleonic law, which is just the opposite. Nothing is legal unless it is expressly legal. Do you see the difference? In other words, all things are prohibited unless it is specifically permitted. Do you see the difference? Again, constitutional republic, all things are permitted unless expressly prohibited. Napoleonic law, all things are prohibited unless expressly permitted. You see the difference? That's where these people that you're talking about want to go. That's a hatred of America. I'm sorry. It is. Yeah, Jefferson 33, they want you to worship the state, not God and individual freedom. Absolutely, 100% correct. Louisa, how you doing? Chavez. What this means is the people have lost total control over government, which we know to be true. Yeah, I'm afraid that's true, and you all know where I feel, where I sit on that whole subject matter. And I'm not certain we'll ever get it back, even with Trump. As a matter of fact, Trump is doing some things that are really causing us to lose it. And you know, I've already put that out about Mark Pantano. You know, he tells you like it is. I mean, it's not something people want to hear, but it's manifestly true. Yeah, Michael Friend, haha, the government has ethics. Like I said, it's a contradiction in terms, and this guy proves it, right? He was over the government ethics office. Yeah, no, that's obviously true. Matter of fact, one of the things he brought up on his thread was, I guess when they are, I guess it's this year. This whole thing happened, I guess, last October, but Trump was planning on having the G7 at, I guess, at Mar-a-Lago, I guess. I'm not sure. It was one of his properties. I think it was there. And I guess everybody started screaming emoluments and, you know, all that, not taking into consideration that you're going to have to pay the money to somebody, and maybe it'll be worth it. Maybe it'll save the taxpayers actually some money if they do hold it on a Trump property. But at any rate, whether that was wise or not for Trump to suggest, I don't think it was because he wants to make money off of it. I think he was just trying to be gracious. Honestly, that's what I think it was. It's like he doesn't take his paycheck. He donates it to different aspects and agencies of the government that might need it, for instance. Okay, so I think that was his motivation. But they're going to twist it, and of course, and sometimes when you're in a position like he is, you got to make sure you avoid even the very appearance of evil, and I understand that. But yeah, I don't think he was trying to violate any ethics or even subconsciously doing that. I think it was just a goodwill effort on his part, frankly. But at any rate. Okay, disgustical. Well, that I understand. He or she. I'm not sure. Trump doesn't not equal America. Sorry. Well, okay. I've already called him out on some problems, but I'll tell you what. Why didn't you call? Did you call out Obama for the stuff he did and didn't do? The way they've investigated Trump, if they had honestly investigated Obama would have been arrested a long time ago. Okay? Talk about high crimes and misdemeanors. But he's protected by the intelligence community. I want to hold Trump's feet to the fire. I would look at Trump, whether he knows it or not. He at least, and whether it's deception or not, he promulgates, he pushes the concept of individualism and liberty. I'm not saying he believes it, but that's his message. And most of his actions show that, although, as we've talked about with Mark Pantano, some of the policies he has are contrary to that and endanger our system. But Obama wanted to fundamentally transform America. And Walter Schaub is a primary example of that. As is all those Democratic candidates, if you listen to that nonsense last night. Nonsense. Talk about anti-American. Holy mackerel. Yeah, Louisa, yeah. And that's the reason why it's being handled the way it is. The virus. It's to take more control. We're already seeing it. Yeah, hey, Hal, I know Kushner was assigned the immigration issue. Yeah, I know. I've been against having Kushner and Ivanka in there from the beginning. What in the world is Ivanka doing going on to the women's conference of the world? We've got problems to solve in the United States, and she's off about some international women's conference. Okay. I'm sorry, but that's just out of touch and out of hand. So you see, disgustical. I don't like everything that they do. Oh, it's a war, okay. This is the beginning stages. You don't know anything about war if you think we're not in a war. Oh, yes, you are. Oh, yes, you are. And it's going to get worse, I'm afraid. Okay, I'm not going to address you anymore. I've addressed you too many times. Okay? Let's see what some other people are saying. Farmers are the greatest Americans. Yeah, I remember Paul Harvey was saying that, the farmer. I know farmers and ranchers, they are the salt of the earth. And that's why I'm so defensive of the Bundys and of the ranchers in Nevada that had their property stolen by the BLM, suckered them in. Oh, we're going to help you. We're here to help you. Oh, yeah, sure. And then they work them into a situation where they steal their property for people like Harry Reid and the UN and China, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. The Department of Justice, the BLM, the FBI should be ashamed of themselves going after the very salt of the earth of this country. Absolutely. They should be held to task, and they're the ones that should be thrown in jail. Jefferson 33, absolutely. Cut their food stamps off and the socialists starve and disappear. I have a friend and he says, why do we put warning labels on things? Like on a plastic bag. Don't put over your head and close around your neck, you'll suffocate. I'm not, okay, you have to protect kids sometimes, but if people are that stupid, that's the law of natural selection, isn't it? I mean, don't take a gun and point it at your head and pull the trigger. I mean, come on. So, yeah, one of the reasons why we're having this immigration problem is because of our social safety nets that are given out freely to everybody but the people that really deserve it, meaning Americans who have paid into it or from their heritage or whatever. But I'm not going to go there other than to say that you come to this country. Well, and this is Congress's fault. This whole thing with the anchor baby thing and all that stuff. This is Congress's fault. You can't save the world. You can't. You can't do it. And people need to come here who have something to offer, not take. And I would agree with that. I've got to address this because I'm not disagreeing with you. Sustainable Stewards says Trump is a Zionist Israel firster. He is not making political moves that benefit the U.S. He is making moves to benefit Israel. He is baiting and switching. Well, I do believe that he gives Israel too much credit. And I could go into the history of that. But again, I want to spend time on, can you all understand this for a minute? I don't want to talk about Trump. We do that all the time. I want to talk about this philosophy that I just gave you that Walter Schaub is showing. What do you think of that? That's what I want to know. We talk about Trump. I've been hard on Trump. I don't want to talk about that today. If that's where we're going to go, I'm just going to shut down. Okay? Today's the day we want to say what's wrong with this philosophy that's trying to take control of not only our country but the entire world. So if we're not going to do that, then I'm wasting my time. I don't want to see anything more about Trump, okay? That's right, Louisa. Civics aren't taught anymore. In a couple places they are. I have some grandkids that are they're in a good school and they are getting some of that, but it's hard to come by. Yeah, Karen Wilson. If anybody's despondent, it should be constitutional republic conservatives. As you're saying, you're despondent. Yes, because it has been dragging on way too long. Of course, tactic to create despondency. Yeah. She's kind of parroting what Schaub said about the left being despondent, but the ones that are really despondent are the people that see this personal liberty and the constitutional republic and the Bill of Rights be undermined. Cheryl Shorst said, please read with no comment. Well, I guess we're too late for that, huh? I said I was going to do it, and then I couldn't refrain myself. Okay. But you can go look it up on Twitter. And if you don't have Twitter, you can still go on your search engine and type in at Walter Schaub, Walt Schaub on Twitter. It'll come up, and then you'll be able to see his thread. That's an interesting point. Jefferson 33 says, America is far from divided. I see your point. I think the majority of Americans don't buy into what Walter Schaub has said, or Gavin Newsom, or Cuomo, or Schumer. I think most Americans don't. The problem is that philosophy spent 60 years infiltrating the government and don't think that wasn't what it was. It was. That's exactly what it was. And all of us were thinking everything's okay. Okay? And now we're at this dangerous precipice. Because we think it's okay for people to express their opinions, and I agree. But when you subvert the principles upon which we were built, you're destroying everything. And it's going to end up in a bloody mess. And maybe there's no way to prevent that. I don't know. Karen Wilson's asking for moderators. Are there problems going on here? I guess I'm missing something. I saw headlines with a voice here, and thanks for being here, Nancy. I think that was you. I saw. I'm pretty sure. And I don't care about Trump's approval rating. I don't look at polls. I don't give a crap what the world thinks. I'm using my own. I won't go for somebody merely because everybody else does. So the last thing I care about is a poll. The only benefit of a poll is for politics. I guess that's a contradiction in what I'm saying there, but anyway, I think you should understand what I'm saying. I'm not moved by polls, put it that way. That doesn't help me to settle my opinions. Oh, Denise J., you said, oh, liberal arts, ugh, my beautiful niece's choice. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with liberal arts. Actually, they're necessary. The problem is that if the and your niece may be fine, but if you go into that without understanding what you're doing, you'll end up like Walter Schaub here, or maybe he went into it for the very specific reason that he's done all this stuff. I mean, he's in charge of ethics. He's not there anymore. He left. Trump kept him for about 3 or 4 months, and then Schaub left and went off on his own. But he's wielding a lot of influence, that's for sure. You've never heard his name before, probably, but in the liberal circles, he's very well known. Yeah, exactly. The wimp will probably would never put on a uniform, but willingly will send your kids to die. And there are a lot of people like that. I have to give Trump a pass on the military stuff. He was in a military school, but he apparently had some problems, and people said that he was pretending that wasn't the case, but it really wasn't the case. But again, I'm not going to go about Trump today. I'm always doing things for him, to him. Okay, Don Sears, this is a good one. The domestic enemy, which all lawyer, liar, and as you're saying, they're all lawyer, liars, and legislators and bankers, and magic money comes from is a illegal 10 by 10 square mile, not the USA District of Columbia. Okay, and that's who Schaub represents. He doesn't represent you and your perfect law of liberty, your freedoms, your life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. He represents control out of D.C. Exactly. Oh, Nancy Morgan Hart, you are here. I thought I saw you. Morning. Man, you're putting out some good stuff. Oh, boy. I tweet about all of it. I don't know if you know. I don't know if you have a Twitter. I've never found that you have a Twitter. Maybe you do under another name. Maybe you can let me know what that is if you do. I won't tell anybody. And I won't follow you so they'll never know. Okay, I'll just look you up. But maybe you could let me know. Oh, yeah, you have a... Yeah, at Walt Schaub. Thank you, Denise J. Thank you. That's exactly right. Everybody, she's just put it out there on the chat there. That's his Twitter account, at Walt Schaub, Denise J. I don't know how long ago she put that up because I'm going down through the list, but that's good. Thank you for being on top of that, Denise. I appreciate that so much. Again, sustainable stewards, I know. We're not here to talk about Trump today. I know about all those failings, the money he gave to Planned Parenthood, the immigration thing. I know. Oh, the Epstein thing sure dropped out, didn't it? That's a big reason why I don't trust Barr. One of the many, many, many reasons. That was unforgivable. But what does that do? People like Walt Schaub, I bet, loved that. See how I'm going to tie that back in? Walt Schaub will love the fact that Barr lost the information, lost that whole thing with Epstein. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they like that. Protects their gods, Bill and Hillary Clinton and Podestas, et cetera, and, the kings and queens and the whole thing. Yeah, Epstein had the potential of taking down that whole thing. Could have taken down everything. So Barr had to cover it up, which again Schaub would appreciate because saving the institutions is what Schaub is about, not about your personal liberty. See how I'm going to tie that back in? Yeah, And like I said about Barr, that's what he wants, to save the institutions and everything that he's doing. We're still looking forward to a report from Durham. I don't want a report from Durham. I want him to throw some ass in jail. Right? But that's not how they're going to spin this. And it's not looking good. I'm sorry, it's not. And again, this is because of the influence of people like Schaub and their way of thinking that Barr is trying to support. He said some great things. It's the liberal side that's causing all these problems in our country, and the rule of law. They don't follow the rule of law. He says all these nice things, but then what does he do? McCabe, right? So Schaub is saying, protect our corruption. That's when he says our democracy, he's saying protect us in our corruption. We have a right to steal, murder. I mean, you don't think he's not thinking that? If it's for his cause, you better believe it. Absolutely. We might have a little subject one day of talking about Jeffrey Epstein again, because they're really trying to shovel that under the rug. They really are. Yeah. It's going to be off topic, but yeah, isn't it interesting? They're treating the coronavirus with HIV drugs. That's because of the implant, the placing of the HIV delivery system into the virus. So HIV drugs will hopefully help take care of that, but I think it's going to be a lot more difficult than that. Okay, it looks like, I guess we're done. We've gone for an hour, and I didn't really want to take a whole lot of your time today. Edelson James, you always come up with a good one. He says, Roy, do you think there is any way to change Walter Schaub's political position from the leftist Marxist he is to a liberty lover? No. There are two, it's like I said, these things have existed from the beginning. I don't know if it's DNA, I don't know if it's culture, I don't know if it's environment, but I have a sneaking suspicion it's in the DNA. If you love liberty, it's in your DNA. If you hate liberty, it's in your DNA. I believe that's the situation. And I think at least my understanding of the scriptures proves that. Okay? The whole thing that happened in the Garden of Eden, and all that, I've told you that was an injection of another DNA into God's creation. I'm not going to go there today, but I think that the people that have liberty in their hearts, it's because it's in their DNA, it's in their genetic background. Alex Jones talks about that a lot, that your DNA is activated when you get involved in these things because you have a genetic memory. So I think it's actually genetic. I really do, primarily. So Walter Schaub will never change. The only way he'll change, in my estimation, well, I can't even say that, because you have to have a broken heart and a contrite spirit. You have to understand that you can't play God, and that's something that these people just can't give up. Okay, I think we're done for today. Thank you all for coming. I just wanted to give you a little taste of the other side. We still got into a little bit too much of Trump. I guess as a way to juxtapose those two things is probably legitimate, but I just wanted to give you a taste of it, because I think that we just don't understand what's going on. And the people that support that line of thinking that Walter Schaub has, I don't think that they're redeemable. Okay? I don't think they're redeemable. To answer that last question about whether he'll ever love liberty, I don't believe, not under the present circumstances. No, they're too dug in and entrenched. No, I don't think so. Maybe in some other lifetime or whatever they might wake up, but I don't think they're going to here. Okay, Well, I guess that's it for today. Again, thanks for coming. I'm not sure when I'll be on again. Some people have been asking me about Nightcap. Am I ever going to get back to Nightcap? And the answer to that is yes, but I've got to find another studio. In order for me to entertain guests, and that's what I like to do, I'm either going to have to travel to where they are, which has been kind of difficult, obviously. The other thing is that I need to have a place where I can set up my green screen for a background. Now, I could use a normal background, but it just either that or at least a studio type environment. And unfortunately, I've lost my studio, the one I was using. They're doing some renovations, and so I had to get out. But eventually, I want to get back into that. I have one that I know I'm going to do. It's going to be a few months away, and that's something I'm really looking forward to. We're going to have an individual on who has had a very long and illustrious career in law enforcement, and we're going to talk about some very interesting things, delicate things, funny things, and all that. But that's many months down the road still, but I am planning on doing that, okay? And I still would like to get some other guests on just for fun. I might end up having to do some of the ideas that I have all on my own, which is going to be kind of boring. But the real point is I need to find another place for a good studio. So that's what I'm working on now, okay? All right. Enough for today. Keep your eyes and ears open. Keep your situational awareness up. Make sure you're listening to the Patriot Nurse about your hygiene, your supplements, and all those things that you can really support your immune system. Just because it's looking like this is attacking primarily Asian males doesn't let us all off the hook. Things could change. They could alter it. It could mutate. Usually it'll mutate to a less severe form, but sometimes it can go the other way. It's kind of random. So just be aware of all the things you need to do to take care of yourself and your loved ones, and etc. Okay? All right. Thanks again for coming. We're out for now. Till next time.